Hello, and welcome to the Off-Meta Umineko Read-Along podcast, the semi-weekly podcast where I guide my friends and first-time readers through my favorite story of all time, the highly acclaimed murder mystery visual novel Umineko When They Cry. We'll be discussing its narrative and themes, and they work together with our community to try and solve its various mysteries. Hope you'll join us on this exciting journey as we delve into the Witch's Catbox. I'm Kyle J, and joining me on our one-way trip to Rokkenjiima, we have our readers, James Capelli, Hayley, and Becca. Welcome, y'all. So, how was your read this week?
I gotta say, end of episode 5. At this point, I was expecting a lot more seagull content. Where are the seagulls? We've never seen seagulls except for at the very beginning.
Yeah, I think they're also mentioned in the end of episode 1. The text crawl talks about the seagulls finally return to the harbor.
They're mentioned, but I need my seagull screen time. All right. Until the seagulls appear in the red text, there are none.
It's true.
That's because they're the culprit, remember? Way back to, was it episode 1? The seagulls done it? I don't know, man.
And they did appear in the early part of the story, that they do meet that criteria, so.
They didn't eat bombs. Seagulls burst from their chests, like xenomorphs.
Yeah. Seems legit.
Not enough seagulls, not enough crying either. We need more crying. There has been a lot of crying. We need more of it.
This episode went hard. Finally got to moments that I've been waiting for some goddamn competence to happen, and it's nice to finally see. I thought we were gonna get it last reading, and then we didn't, and I'm like, what am I even rating this for? If Battler's just gonna continue to suck.
Agreed.
But finally, something happens. How much do I want to say versus letting Hayley just read along with Kyle's plot summary?
Well, why would that be an issue, Hayley?
Yeah, so do you want this to be disclosed, Kyle, for this episode that I
think so.
haven't read it?
I think it will be difficult to keep a ruse up.
I could try, though. But yeah, no, my read has been me trying to catch up, because folks may have noticed I've been a little bit absent lately. I do have reasons. So yeah, my read I am in the courtroom drama right now is as far as I've got. So we'll see how this goes.
So you're most of the way through the last section of reading?
Yeah, I think I'm in 5.5.
That section's so long. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it's been such a slog, and I was like, I've got 5.5 and 5.6 to do today. Easy peasy. And then it was all just caught, and I was like, now why? This is my least favorite bits.
Hayley's kryptonite.
Yeah.
Hayley, don't look. But when the discussion of whether or not to reveal to everybody whether you're caught up or not, the first sentence of the plot summary is so fucking good to go in blind. But I enjoyed it. I've finally seen what people like episode 5 so much. A bit more of a slow burn as far as I can't wait for some of these villains to get some sort of comeuppance. It's gonna happen any minute now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No. Here, no. Finally. Yay. Good reads. Good reads. It's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
And made Becca cry, I'm sure.
Kyle got to hear me react in real time to this episode.
I bet that was fun.
And it was a lot of me just screaming and not knowing what to do with myself. Just what I will say is, Erika, it's okay. I know it's not your fault that you are the way that you are, but you still fucking suck, girl. I need you to get up. Get up. She doesn't give a shit about you, but you're gonna be okay. I'm gonna get you out of there. I'm gonna get you out of there, girl. But Beato,
wow.
I can't go on. Kyle, you should take us there.
Yes, we'll get into it. This week, we are finishing episode 5, End of the Golden Witch, with about 3 hours of reading, including both the Tea Party and !! Segments. And that is videos 90 through 92 of the YouTube playlist. If you have not caught up to that point yet, or are Hayley, you can stop the podcast and catch up before joining us, or if you're Hayley, I should say, just listen to us and enjoy as we describe what happened in those parts. We return to our story just after Ushiromiya Battler has died. Here at the end of the 5th game, the detective, Erika, has already laid out the whodunit and the howdunit for Natsuhi's supposed crime. Now she turns her focus to the final riddle of the 3, the whydunit. In a third-rate mystery, the culprit can be expected to confess their motive themselves once they've been caught. However, Erika is a first-rate detective, so she would expose even this. With the tragically beautiful track Discolored playing, we watch as Erika constructs a motive for Natsuhi using pieces pulled from the diaries that she had poured her heart into during her most troubled and sad years just after marrying into the Ushiromiya family. Apparently, according to these diaries and the testimony of Kumasawa and Dr. Nanjo, Natsuhi's marriage into the Ushiromiya family had been practically a hostage situation. In an attempt to raise the Ushiromiya family's social standing, Kinzo had financially bullied a noble Japanese house and forced them to marry their daughter into his family as reconciliation. Erika posits that Natsuhi must then have been harboring hatred towards the Ushiromiya family this entire time. However, Natsuhi denies it, saying that while she had initially thought that way, the way Krauss had treated her with compassion and affection eventually won her heart.
I'm sorry. Wait, what? Krauss? Compassion? Affection? I'm sorry, Kyle, to cut you off, but what? No.
I mean, we got to see some of it in the flashback on the bus, yeah.
I also had this reaction, but like, I don't know what to say. That she loves him. She's down bad for that pitiful man, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad. God damn.
And you know what? Who amongst us has not been in love with someone that was not great for us? But, you know.
It's literally the worst.
I believe with the scene that we get in this reading, I think it's this reading and not episode 4, with her and Krauss in China.
Mm-hmm. It's this one.
And like, yeah, kind of like how they are kind of doing some sort of like cultural, traditions of the Chinese place they're in.
Yeah, I think it may have been Taiwan. I don't remember if it was China or Taiwan, but yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the implication is that you can read into it more, and when the story has done that previously, they have extrapolated on it in like later segments. So I think we'll get more nuance between the two of them. But I don't think it will be enough to make you a full-on Krauss stan, which I think is fine, because like the whole idea is she's lived a sheltered life, and she's been used as a tool for marriage. And how many times have I said the story is just about feminism? And it's going to be, oh, okay, he's the one person that she actually was able to make a real connection with. And that's honestly her devotion to him. Is that justified being enough? Like, that's individualist. How would you define it?
Or it could be Stockholm Syndrome.
Maybe a little bit. I think it very easily started with that. Maybe it persisted. Maybe it didn't. But it absolutely did start with it.
Low self-esteem.
That was mostly a joke. I do think she's in love with that man. As much as I wish she weren't, because she, in my mind, is so much better than him. But I digress.
Mm.
I would agree with you. It ain't the healthiest love, but it's all a girl's got,
Yeah. Despite your first line there, and so Capelli is saying that it was a great opener to a plot summary.
Great, because I wanted to see your reaction of Battler's dead.
I know Battler's dead. I'd skimmed ahead. You weren't at the mic for that bit, unfortunately. Sorry. But that is the least shocking thing about Umineko when people die. I'm just like, whatever.
But this is the first time. This is the first time it's happened.
Yeah, I'll see.
And it's weird because he dies in the metaverse, I guess, but his peace was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess, but it's still more shocking.
They go into that a bit more. They go into that a bit more here. It's like what it means for him to be quote unquote dead in this context.
Okay, exciting.
Erika posits that Natsuhi must then have been harboring hatred towards the Ushiromiya family this entire time. However, Natsuhi denies it, saying that while she'd initially thought that way, the way Krauss had treated her with compassion and affection eventually won her heart. Unfortunately, though, none of those feelings were ever expressed in her diaries, and so Erika disregards them as lacking evidence sufficient to elevate them to red truth. Nothing can be trusted except for red truth. Statements that aren't read don't count as evidence at all, and they can't be trusted at all. All text that is not read is falsehood that exists to deceive me. I love him. Who would believe profession in love in white text? No non-read words can ever be trusted. The only things that can be trusted in this world are the red truth and the pieces of evidence I offered to my master to obtain it. And for just a moment, we see Erika's painful grimace before she returns to her malicious grin. Natsuhi pities this poor girl who has clearly never experienced real love. Continuing through Natsuhi's diaries, Erika paints over the past with her malicious interpretations that no one can dispute now that Natsuhi has been officially declared the culprit. Battler's Peace continues to struggle with the way everyone is attacking Natsuhi as the culprit, but then Erika suddenly offers one last alternate possibility. After all, there is still one person on this island for whom their alibi has not been established for the crime: Ushiromiya Kinzo. Should Natsuhi agree to accuse Kinzo as the culprit of this crime and claim that she was merely trying to protect him, Erika is willing to completely change the plot of this story and write him up as the culprit instead. However, Natsuhi refuses to dishonor the Ushiromiya family by pushing this false blame off of herself and onto Kinzo. It would seem that Erika's plan is to erase her defeat in Kinzo's study at the hands of Battler by having Natsuhi herself admit that Kinzo had been dead this whole time. Back in the Court of Illusions, with Battler dead and Beatrice's existence denied, Natsuhi stands alone against the witches accusing her, despite the fact that Kinzo is already dead, as confirmed in red in a previous game. Bernkastel seeks to achieve a perfect victory on this game board by forcing Natsuhi to confess. And so, Bernkastel and Erika begin their endgame. Bernkastel begins by stating in red that, from midnight until morning, Kinzo stayed in the same room, which, given that he is a corpse, is certainly true. Bernkastel then says, from now on, when she uses the term Kinzo, she is referring only to a living Kinzo, and then gives the red, Kinzo does not exist anywhere outside of the mansion. Using Erika's ability as the detective to find all clues, Erika can definitively state that Kinzo does not exist outside the mansion, because her search had been unable to find any such hints of him being so. Thus, Bernkastel is able to elevate her observation to red truth. And as Bernkastel pointedly states, that means if Natsuhi claims that Kinzo is still alive, he would have to be somewhere inside the mansion. Erika then continues in a similar manner, eliminating location after location inside the mansion, each time asking Natsuhi if she knows where Kinzo might have been hiding. The net slowly tightens around Natsuhi, as every location in the mansion is eliminated by Erika's search and Bernkastel's red. Using Hempel's Raven, by eliminating every other room as a possibility, Erika finally establishes that Kinzo could only have been hiding in the personal bedroom of Natsuhi herself. When Natsuhi, furious at the allegations that she was hiding Kinzo, opens the door to her room to reveal it empty, that should fully eliminate the possibility of a living Kinzo existing anywhere. However, Erika's goal is not to defeat Natsuhi with logic. Her goal is to force Natsuhi to resign in humiliation. Erika reveals that not only had she been searching for Kinzo himself, but also any evidence that Kinzo had been hiding there between midnight and this morning. Since she had been unable to find such evidence, she could conclusively prove that Kinzo could not have been hiding anywhere besides Natsuhi's room during that time. With no room to deny that she knew where Kinzo could have been hiding at that point, Bernkastel gives Natsuhi one final chance to accuse Kinzo and save herself before Erika goes in for the kill. Unsurprisingly, Natsuhi continues to refuse and seals her own fate. With glee, Bernkastel gives the following red truth. For the entire duration of the night, between midnight and morning, a living Kinzo could not have existed in any place except inside Natsuhi's bed. And last night, Natsuhi also slept in that same bed. Bernkastel also states in blue that, therefore, we can conjecture that Ushiromiya Natsuhi and Ushiromiya Kinzo had sexual relations with each other. Why else would a man and a woman share the same bed all night long? Knowing that the only red truth that Natsuhi could possibly use to refute it would be to admit that Kinzo was already dead. However, even then, Natsuhi refuses to betray the honor of the Ushiromiya family that Kinzo entrusted her with. Of course, though, Bernkastel can't let that stand. After all, the real Kinzo never once ordered Natsuhi to do anything like protect his honor.
So, I feel like there's obviously a direct correlation between like the gravity of that accusation and like going deeply personal into her diary and all that. And I do think it raises up some like ethical considerations in murder mystery genre.
Okay.
Right? Because like that's what this episode is mostly about. Right? Is
Sure.
What makes a good mystery? What makes a good detective? You know, how do you use the Decalogue in that context? And if you were to take the emotion out of it, like what we know about any of the characters here, and you just put down the facts, right? Like imagine you're reading episode 5 on the board as its own standalone novel.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say a detective is justified in that level of personal space invasion, I guess, right? Like you're going into someone's deep thoughts because at this point you suspect them to be a mass murderer. And as I was reading that, I was like, it's pretty gross because we, as the reader, have all that emotional involvement. We have the hours of getting to know these characters. We seemingly know Natsuhi's heart and her inner monologue. Later on, it goes to show that like all that can basically be washed away if they have ever been seen to witness quote-unquote magic on the board. They are a piece, they are not truly objectively trustworthy. So I'm wondering if it's like actually still possible based on whatever the power of the gold truth to be that Kinzo's alive actually, or you know, there's so many things you can't interpret because we don't have the rules for it yet. But I'll go back to like how that connects in with the ethics. Like if the rules change and the stories change, what line is too far to cross to catch a culprit, to catch a murderer, to catch a predator?
Well, in terms of the ethics of it, if you think about like a murder investigation And if a cop gets a warrant to search your house, if they suspect you of murder, they're going to find your diary and read your diary.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the fact that Natsuhi is on trial and formally accused of being the murderer, I don't put it, like, so far beyond the pale for Erika to have access to her diary, because she's the detective.
But that implies, A, that the law is always correct, and B, it implies that Erika is acting under jurisdiction in a legal matter, and she's not. Right? Age aside, craziness of this story aside, but like, and what I'll say to converse with that is, if you are suspected of murder, the amount of ethical towing of the line that law enforcement can do in investigations and keeping you in questioning is actually pretty goddamn disgusting. A lot of the tactics they use that lead to a lot of false arrests, false accusations, false judgments, because of the condition that a lot of these suspects are put under. In that sense, if Natsuhi confessed right now to say that Kinzo is the killer, or even previously in the last episode, chapter, right, last podcast episode that we did, if she were to say, it was Krauss, or, it was Kinzo, that could easily be argued as inadmissible because of the emotional strain that she is currently under.
Right.
And a written dialogue is another story. That is historically, like, pretty rock solid. This is what she said years ago. And to have the suspect say, that's my life has changed. This is how I felt back then. But to berate her for it. But if she really did do it, and she really did kill her nephews and her nieces and her siblings, then it's kind of justified, right? In an ethical dilemma. And I just think that, like, as I was reading through this, it's just like, that was just one of the things that kind of just stuck with me, right? Is, in a real world sense, what line do you cross as someone trying to solve a murder? What level do you debase a suspect / victim, right? Eva beating the tar out of Natsuhi. Nobody stepping in, maybe giving a half-hearted attempt to stop her, until Battler says something and then it cuts to black, right? We don't get to cut to black in real life. You got to be okay with what's happening. And that leads to survivor's guilt. That leads to a lot of second guessing when the verdict comes up. I don't know. I just thought that was a fun little thought experiment that I put myself through. And it's not an easy question.
The author definitely is taking a more, like, what Erika doing here is perverse perspective, I think. Like, I think that's what they're showing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You're supposed to hate Erika very easily.
And I mean, obviously, what Erika is doing in the moment is gross, right? To, like, they have a warrant and they seized her diaries because she was under suspicion of murder and they were putting together a case. That's fairly standard stuff, yeah.
Well, I'll say what makes it gross is her getting satisfaction out of it. Her joy, her enthusiasm in the humiliation, in the degradation, is really what makes it, like, kind of like ethics are a lot about intent, and a lot about motivation. While there is absolutely a motivation for Erika to be like, I just straight up have to solve this. That's just what I am. That's what I do. That's what I'm all about. And I will enjoy it when I'm right. But when that joy is at the expense of someone else's suffering, that's when I say ethics play a pretty heavy consideration.
She's also very much kind of like a corrupt cop, in the sense that, like, she's been given a mandate to find Natsuhi guilty. And so she would have put together whatever was necessary within those diaries to make Natsuhi look like the culprit, whether she believes it or not, whether it's true or not.
And I think the line that would need to be set to make her not a corrupt cop would be to accept new evidence, to accept new truth, to accept alternate considerations, which, when she is finally presented with it, refuses to budge on.
Well, I mean, she's not judge, jury, and executioner, though, right?
I mean, she kind of is. It depends on what we're looking at.
She wants to be, and so she fights for it.
She's not the judge because she is presenting the case to the court. She's more like detective and lawyer, and Bernkastel is like her shady, financial backer who's saying, put this guy in jail or whatever.
Yeah, but there's an interesting difference between, like, the witch side and, like, on the game board, because on the game board, the detective kind of is the judge, jury, and executioner.
Dlanor's the executioner, baby.
Actually, no, you're right, because there's a moment that this reminds me of. Once Natsuhi was declared guilty, people's behavior changed, right? Before she was declared guilty in the trial, there was a lot more fighting against what was happening. Battlers seemed to be able to affect things.
Yeah, what ifs and how abouts, and yeah.
But then once the declaration came down, suddenly Eva starts beating up Natsuhi, and no one seems to be willing to stop that anymore. Battler feels unable to step in and say anything anymore. When Erika goes and gets those diaries and starts constructing that false narrative, no one is even bothering to consider a possibility that she's wrong about any of that. There seems to be a kind of a cosmic power forcing that reality upon the game after that point.
Once again, this story is just fucked full of screwed up people who, whether created by witches or by other people, need some kind of reality and sensitivity check.
Oh, yeah. Lambdadelta announces Lady Bernkastel is the victor of this game, calling for any and all objectors to speak up. But of course, in this empty cathedral, while opposition has been erased, none were left to object. Lambdadelta grants Bernkastel the right as the victor to write the truth of this fragment. We then see excerpts from the various court documents describing the narrative that Bernkastel has written into the record, that as part of her scheme to take control of the wealth of the Ushiromiya family, and fueled by her long-standing hatred, Natsuhi had seduced Kinzo and planned to kill the entire family once Battler had discovered the gold. Back on the game board, a sobbing Natsuhi is finally ready to confess, not to these false accusations brought before her of these last 2 days, but to her crime of murder of 19 years ago. Natsuhi confesses that on that fateful day 19 years ago, in a moment of weakness, she had pushed the servant carrying that child off of that cliff. While she did eventually manage to apologize to the servant who died at her grave during her husband's funeral several years ago, she had never apologized to the child, who must have grown up filled with so much hatred for a mother who had tried to kill him all those years ago. She asks if doing this to her has satisfied him, now that she has lost everything she has gained in these last 18 years, and is finally properly seen as the murderer she is. While Erika still seems to think that Natsuhi is pretending to be framed, Battler suddenly interrupts with the classic Dameda, Zen Zen Damedaze, and so rolls the credits of the main part of episode 5.
I was blown away by how short the section was, as well as the subsequent tea room area. I was like, man, the end of this is actually really short before we get to the question mark section, which is 80% of the read.
Yeah, they kind of flipped the script on that one.
I liked it.
I mean, I hope that means that the question mark section is full of answers. Right, Kyle? Right, Kyle?
Right, Kyle? Right, Kyle?
Answers of a sort.
Oh, there's answers, all right. We just don't get to know them still.
Okay, cool.
There's literally a part where Lambdadelta says, "No further need to explain, Battler. I know what you're talking about," and it would be gauche to keep explaining things.
I just looked at Kyle like, seriously? It got figured out and they're just not going to tell us. Are you really serious right now?
Yep. Well, we're about to get to that, so.
We have to try and solve it, guys. We'll get there.
Yep. Well, at the end of this, we'll definitely have a good discussion about how much effort people want to try and put into figuring things out now that we've gotten the call to action. So
Kyle and I have had some fun conversations already.
I'm still in epitaph solving mode, so...
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm not ready to solve the mystery yet.
Yeah, Hayley was sending me messages yesterday about, like, epitaph theories, and I was like, Hayley, go back to reading. It makes sense now that I know that you were stuck in, like, the part that I knew you would dislike the most, so that checks out a lot, actually. You were grasping for anything other than the long legal segment. We then begin Episode 5's Tea Party, which finds us back at the Cathedral of the Court of Illusions. Bernkastel is ordering Erika and Dlanor to stay in this fragment and solve the first 4 games in order to thoroughly destroy the illusion of the witch, to expose the naked truth with extreme prejudice. Erika is confident that she can largely explain the previous games with Natsuhi as the culprit, and they've already begun rounding up Beatrice's furniture to confront them with the sad material reality they are based on and deny their magical existence. Apparently, the 7 Sisters of Purgatory are believed to be a set of paperweights made in New York that were passed around by collectors who had been swindled into thinking they were authentic relics. Dlanor also revealed that it is suspected that the Chester Sisters' vessels are the weapons used in the crimes. Bernkastel delights in the prospect of watching each of their executions as her entertainment for the next few weeks, with Erika tripping over herself to fulfill her master's request for a variety of novel methods of execution, despite Delanor's protests. As a reward, Bernkastel replaces Beatrice's portrait with that of Erika, and grants her the title of Witch of Truth until she finishes her business in this fragment. We then cut to Lambdadelta, who is standing underneath Battler's impaled corpse, regretting that he failed to live up to her expectations. Bern joins her, and the 2 Voyager witches contemplate what they will do next to alleviate their eternal illness of boredom, now that they have crushed and devoured this fragment. The charade of their rivalry now dropped, having long since lost its usefulness. Erika joins them, and Bernkastel tasks her, as the new ruler of this fragment, with weaving the tale that leads to this world's demise. Episode 6, Checkmate of the Golden Witch.
Another very short section.
Yeah. Although, actually, we got a few really solid answers in there, actually.
Oh, yeah. Like, short, but, like, very informative, right? And I think, gosh, I don't want to call the metaverse, the witch side, Bernkastel side, whatever. I don't want to call them the villains. I'll say they're the antagonists to Battler here.
Sure.
But to see them get their win and kind of revel in it, that is something that I think a lot of stories struggle with doing well. And I think they did it really well here, because it's like, yes, we have won, and yes, we are, of course, being civilized about this, and yes, we will find all of these so-called pieces of the witch and bring them to justice. And like, I do really like, especially a real-world, like a full team mystery explanation for what the stakes are. I thought that was really cool. I know for certain that will come back as the story kind of narrows down into pick a lane, right? Team mystery, team magic, or fantasy, whatever.
Why paperweights, though? Why not just stakes? Like,
because it's more humiliating, is what I would say, like, from Erika and Bernkastel's point of view. But just like, when you find something like that in the real world, what could they truly be?
Yeah, I mean, functionally, they're just a set of fake relics, right? And they're just called paperweights because, yeah, just to degrade them, to make them seem worth less.
I see. Okay.
I think they said they're worth $30. So they're pretty garbage, actually.
Like bought in an airport gift shop.
Yeah. And then they just got passed around by collectors who kept being told that they were authentic, and then they sold them to other collectors, and eventually they got into Kinzo's hands.
Does this not make anybody else feel terrible for the Seven Sisters? Just like throwaway.
I think it's camp, and I think it's fierce, and I think Beato was tapping all of her resources to make something amazing.
Yeah, I'm glad she used those thrift shop finds to do her killings, yeah.
Who cares if they're authentic relics? They're still authentic, like, she still attached authentic demons from hell to them.
Yeah, theoretically.
So I think that gives them a sense of importance no matter what.
I like it. Thank you, Becca.
I also like in this part how we kind of get to what degree anything can be called mask off in this game that has had so many layers, for they keep revealing that no, that layer was also a mask, but where Lambdadelta and Bernkastel are like, we can stop pretending to be rivals. Like, we are Galactus and the Silver Surfer going to various fragments and devouring them for funsies.
We'll come back to this when we get to the end of the read, but I'm like, if things progressed right now straight into episode 6, Checkmate of the Golden Witch, they've won. How do you make an episode 6 with Erika as, the one in charge?
That's a good question.
And 7 and 8.
Well, just even ignoring 7 and 8, like, how do you get to a 6? Because you need to get through a 6 to even consider a 7 or 8. Like, you think Beatrice is gone, Battler's dead.
Episode 6 has to be the one to end the world, they just said.
Yeah, what does that mean? Yeah. So, knowing what episode 8 is, I think you could theoretically imagine a version of that with Dlanor doing like the opposite of what that episode is trying to do. Or not Dlanor, Erika trying to do the opposite of what that episode is trying to accomplish. And that's probably what that would look like. Not that means anything to y'all, but still, I think there is possibly a thing they could have done. Of course, we'll get to that when we get to episode 8, 3 years from now. I had to downgrade the podcast to semi-weekly because I've been taking too long to get these edits out. The question mark segment begins with Battler dead in the cathedral. Not because of the red sword pierced through his chest, but because he has given up and stopped thinking. The true Beatrice then appears, her eyes still covered in shadow, and barely hanging on to this world she once created. She approaches Battler, and seeing that he is truly dead and banished from this world, she finally gives up that last bit of hope. She merely says, "Thank you, liar, goodbye, and I'm sorry." And with nothing left for her, she simply fades away. We then find ourselves in the Golden Land, in what seems to be a flashback to the time when Dlanor had come here to speak with Battler. A memory that Dlanor had imbued into her sword, so that Battler might remember it later. Through it, Battler is reminded of the conversation they had at that time about the nature of the Knox Decalogue. Battler finds the idea that a detective can rule out the existence of any hidden doors without having to search for them just as fantastical as the Devil's Proof. However, as Dlanor explains, Knox's third isn't about denying the use of any hidden doors at all, but merely those that even the detective can't find. Without it, any locked room mystery could be resolved by a completely unforeshadowed hidden door, which would make no one want to even try to solve them. As Dlanor says, humans are weak creatures who cannot even think unless they have assurance that reasoning is possible. Virgilia reminds Battler that in detective novels, there's always a scene where the detective announces that he has discovered who the culprit is, in order to tell the reader that all of the necessary clues to solve the mystery have been given. Battler recalls how he was in the earlier games, unwilling to even try to reason because there was too much uncertainty. It was only after Beatrice had created the rule of the Red Truth that he had been willing and able to enter the fight properly. By giving Battler the tool by which to untangle the mysteries, a promise that he could solve it if he tried, wasn't it like Beatrice herself was admitting that she wasn't really a witch at all? Dlanor says the Decalogue was never meant to be a set of commandments that had to be followed, but a crutch for the power of thinking of the reader. Knox's 8 says that it's forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented. Not only does that mean that the reader should avoid making baseless guesses that are not supported by the clues, but also that the author must provide the necessary clues to solve the mystery. It's a guarantee that finding the solution is possible. Battler wonders if such a mindset makes it impossible to reason in stories that don't necessarily follow the Decalogue, such as this game of Beatrice's. However, Virgilia and Dlanor assure Battler that while the story has never claimed to be an orthodox mystery, Beatrice made this game so that Battler might solve it. Even so, though, something that Beatrice thinks is solvable might not be solvable for Battler. But Virgilia does give Battler this piece of red truth. Beata wanted you to solve it, so she created this game and the riddles of this tale to be solvable. While she cannot guarantee the answers Battler seeks can be found using the Decalogue, Dlanor implores Battler to give this tool to help guide your thinking a try the next time he gets stuck. Virgilia compares Battler to being given a guarantee that the mystery is solvable to a young couple who don't want to even begin to love one another unless they can be guaranteed that their love will be reciprocated. After all, there's nothing as painful as one-sided love. It is similar to the relationship between a mystery author and its readers. Neither side wants to commit to the work if they don't believe the other side will likewise do their due diligence. This metaphor seems to really speak to Battler, who recalls how his own first love was lost to someone else because they left things unsaid for too long. Battler realizes that for both love and mysteries, the most important thing is mutual trust. It's only then that Battler realizes that Virgilia and Dlanor have been half speaking about his and Beatrice's relationship this whole time, and he gets embarrassed.
This is just so...
Say it.
Oh my god. I don't even know where to begin. Beato showing up to, like, find him dead and then giving him one last taunt before she just, like, fades away into oblivion is so real and devastating to me. Oh my god. You know, it feels great to be right and get my way. I love to win and get my way. It hurts so good, etc., etc. But oh man, this was around the time that I was screaming at Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Many a pillow received several punches.
Yeah.
Oh man, I almost feel like we need to get together for like the last episode, the entirety of 8, and read it together in a weekend and react real time.
That would be rough.
It would be so rough.
That's some harsh reading. I don't know if I want to be that emotionally vulnerable around y'all. I'm definitely gonna cry when we get to parts of episode 8. It's tough.
Oh man. Okay, that's something for me to look forward to. I mean, this is really great to hear. Like you say, Becca, it's so good. But like, I can't wait to actually read this for myself now with the music and goddamn.
The music in this episode goes really hard. I'll agree there.
Yes, there's several songs that I don't think we've heard before that are just incredible here.
I started listening to the entire OST as I started like going back from the start trying to solve it.
Nice.
I told Kyle this. I'm pretty sure the playlist I have plays the songs in chronological order in which they arrive.
I think so.
So there will become a point where I start getting songs to be like, I never heard this before. I should probably just start over. Because I really like finding songs for the first time in the setting that they are introduced in the game.
Yeah. I know YouTube has a lot of the songs in a playlist, and they're separated into like the question arcs and the answer arcs. So as long as you stay in the question arc segment, you'll definitely not hit anything that we haven't heard yet. So
yeah. Enjoy the music before it is inevitably taken down on YouTube. That day will come at some point, I'm sure.
I'd have to at some point. I mean, we can only hope that Umineko gets popular enough that they can finally make enough money.
There's no fucking way. Do you think there is an Umineko vinyl?
Probably not. I mean, maybe someone would make one.
I'm a big vinyl collector. I have a lot of records. Amazon says no.
I mean, you can't even get the fucking manga. If you want to buy the Umineko manga in English, it's like,
oh, no.
It's not in print. You have to like find it secondhand from people, and it's like hundreds of dollars to get the full set.
I have a lot of things that I am a big fan of that is like similar, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple book series where they were self-published, they were softback, and they go for hundreds of dollars. I'm a big Coheed and Cambria fan, which is like they have a graphic novel, which is like they're out of print. They go for hundreds of dollars. And it's just, I love all that stuff, but I don't ever see myself spending that kind of money, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hey, there's a Reddit thread. Is there an Umineko BGM vinyl? 0 comments 2 years ago. So that kind of answers that question.
Yeah, it checks out.
Anyway, at the end of this episode, we have 2 huge red truths from Virgilia. Natsuhi is not the culprit. Beato wanted you to solve this, so she created the game and the riddles of this tale to be solvable.
Mm-hmm.
Who the fuck is this woman?
Yeah.
What does she care about? Right? Because I think there is a very real argument to be made that she is just wanting to help her protege. But then I am brought back to the end of episode 3, where it seems that Battler is right about to sign the agreement that witches are real, and she gets a very demonic evil grin on her face alongside Beato.
Mm-hmm.
One could argue that it's all part of the ruse to make Battler stay on his toes, because then Angie shows up,
mm-hmm.
and then in this episode we find out nobody can get into this metaverse without being invited by Beato, so Angie had to be invited in to get here in the first place, right? It's not that Bernkastel pierced through.
Mm-hmm.
So why did Virgilia have this evil, satisfying grin on her face as he's about to sign the agreement that magic is real? Like, I feel like, yeah, there's more we'll get from it, but I feel like we have enough pieces now to understand just about everything we get through leading up to this point, right? We're basically told that.
Yeah.
And we have to kind of figure out like what the motivations are. What does she want? What does Beato want? What does anybody want?
Well, we still don't know what happened 6 years ago, right? The sin of 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll say that is the one big mystery that we could, kind of like how at the end of episode 4, maybe we could understand the answer to the epitaph. I feel like we're in a similar situation. Maybe we could understand what happened 6 years ago if you find the right signs and you don't go chasing red herrings. But yeah, I don't think we
largely, yeah.
I think most readers would not figure it at this point.
Who's this first relationship with Battlers? Like, this is the first time we've heard that reference.
I'm glad you said that, because I was like, oh, does that tie into the sin of 6 years ago?
Right, exactly.
Like, is Beato someone from Battler's past that he's not realizing?
Yeah.
I guess Battler has had a couple of comments of like people he's dated or been interested in at this point in his life, but they've all been throwaway lines.
Hmm.
I feel like nothing in this story is a throwaway line.
No.
Even when you think it is. All of it is context for the mystery.
Hmm.
But also, going back to what you were just going on about in terms of who the fuck is Virgilia? Why does she get that creepy evil smile at the end of episode 2? Knowing that Beato has some kind of intent or desire for Battler to solve this mystery actually recontextualizes that a lot more. Because I remember even at the time we were like, why are they giving up the ghost right when he's about to sign? If she's about to win,
Mm-hmm.
why are they doing this heel turn right at the end to like make him realize that it's wrong, that he's losing if he does?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, oh yeah, because she wanted him to solve it. Okay.
Yeah, because at the time we had speculated it was Lambdadelta pressuring Beatrice to throw the game, to keep the game going, but it seems like that was also very much in Beatrice's goals as well.
Dlanor says, humans are weak creatures who cannot even think unless they have assurance that reasoning is possible. What does everybody else think about that comment, about the logic progression of a human in general?
They could have just said Capelli is a weak creature who cannot even think unless he has assurance that reasoning is possible.
You shut your witch mouth. You shut it.
I think it does call out a certain level of like what I think this author might perceive as what I am interpreting as potential like laziness of people to really like try and think through a problem and find a solution to things. And honestly, you know what? Considering the rise of AI usage by people who just want to circumvent doing like an extra 5 minutes of effort on the most simple of tasks as writing an email or whatever, it's like, you know, I get it. I get it. And me myself even am like usually I was telling this to Kyle. It's funny because it's like when I used to have a lot more like free time in my life, I would love to theorize and be in fandom spaces and, you know, think about things that were going on in all of the sci-fi and mystery shows that I loved. Like, what's going to happen next on Doctor Who? What's in the hatch? You know, like, but now as an adult where I like have...
Tell me you're in your 30s without telling me you're in your 30s.
Right. But also like in my life now, I have so many obligations and things that while I really do like thinking about this stuff and wish I had more time to spend in online spaces, I'm more just content to be along for the ride. And like the author really doesn't want you to do that. He really wants you to kind of like dig into this and try and figure out what's going on, because he is essentially walking you through how to solve it. This is him taking you by the hand and saying, okay, little baby, if you haven't done your due diligence yet, it's time to start. Like, you can do it. I believe in you. Do good.
I will contest that the difference, just like how Lost is a different experience from binging it now versus watching it as it comes out, I would say Umineko is very similar, right? Like, I definitely read some book series and keep up to date with stuff. Like, as it comes out, it's like, okay, Stormlight 5 is about to come out. Time to do my reread of 1 through 4 so I'm up to date on all the shit that happens. But in 10 years, if a new fan gets into Stormlight, right, you've got, at that point, 7, 8 books to read. You can just boom, 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 just go through it. That's what we're experiencing. We don't have the 6-month, 4-month, whatever the gap is between episode 2 and 3, episode 5 and 6, whatever. If I got into this, if this was one of my first big series into a story, say my mid-20s, oh, Umineko episode 7's about to come out, I'm going to go back and reread all that stuff, and I'm going to try to piece it together. I'm going to do that more willingly because I have the time. Right? The only reason I'm going back through and rereading it now, like literally right now, is because I have Kyle's summaries from our podcast. I don't have the 30 to 80 hours to go back through a certain, an episode or everything we've read so far to try to solve the mystery, but I have the Spark Notes version.
Man, some people are just built different, because I have never reread a damn thing in my life. If I can't remember it, it wasn't worth remembering.
Different flavors of ADHD, you and I think.
Holy shit. As for the quote that you called out, well, fuck you too, Rikishu 7. I am a baby that needs to be led.
I will say, when it comes to me just trying to enjoy a story, like, yeah, absolutely. But if I was in a fight or flight, life or death, I have like a week to solve a mystery, I don't need reassurance. I will fight hard. That is the human condition.
Yeah, I mean...
So I think it's a big difference between if this is for entertainment versus this is real life or death.
Yeah, that's true.
I gotta say, though, I do kind of disagree with what he's saying here. Humans are weak creatures. I agree with that bit. Who cannot even think unless they have assurance that reasoning is possible. Humans generally are big on religion. There's no reasoning in religion.
I love that take.
They're not usually trying to solve religion, though. Like, that's the whole point, is faith.
I think the conspiracy theories are also a good example.
Historically, people who do try to solve religion are violently persecuted.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I disagree with that as well. I think the story will prove Dlanor is incorrect in what these characters will eventually achieve.
Like, I don't want to be misunderstood. Like, I do think it is a general plague lately that, like, sometimes people really just cannot be bothered to do, like, a little bit of legwork. Like, it's actually kind of a pet peeve of mine, so this was a little bit validating for me. But, like, I do genuinely think there are lots of smart people in the world who are very curious people. And as Capelli just said, especially in a life or death situation, like if I'm Battler, of course, all I am doing is thinking about everything that's been going on for the past however long he's been stuck in it.
Yeah.
You couldn't have said it in a better way. Thinking. And we're going to get to that real soon.
Yeah, no, I hear you, Becca, and I agree on your AI points in particular. People are real lazy. Like, we're giant mammals, right? Like,
Yeah.
we're kind of programmed to be a little bit lazy and find the most efficient route through things. But I think there'll always be people, I hope there will always be people that are curious and want to figure shit out on their own. But certainly when you're in the midst of the fire, you definitely are just figuring shit out.
Yeah. This is something that I, as a parent, am deeply struggling with. It's one of the things that keeps me up at night, is like reading about how the current generation is trying to struggle to get through the mundanity of schoolwork and regular thought versus AI can just solve this thing for me. Why do I have to think for it myself? And how that will look in 10, 15, 20 years as my kids grow up into school, into what it means to be a critical thinker, a critical analyst. And AI can't solve all your problems. It's like my approach is going to be a lot of gamifying, right? I cannot give my kids AI, at least current day, and give them a board game, a strategy game, and say, solve this game, win it, just using AI. Not satisfying. So how is that going to translate to their schoolwork, to their future, to their careers, if careers are even a thing in 20 years, right? Because like in a utopia, right? Like we as humanity are really close to having the tools to create a true utopia, right? Eliminate all of, or a lot of, class warfare, a lot of needing to struggle. We have AI, we have a lot of things where if we can just eliminate people hoarding resources, we as a species could thrive and create art and so much goodness. We're not going to see that because of, again, the human condition. That term has been living rent-free in my head for like a month plus, if not longer.
Yeah, I do love that AI was conceived as like, oh, it's going to give us all this free time to do art, except that's what AI is doing, is all the art now.
Right.
Truly dystopian.
Well, I think there are a lot of jobs that straight up need humans to work, right? I am biased in saying healthcare needs to be managed by a person, not a computer program. I think a computer program can do a lot of good once it's trained to do so. I'm starting to see AI, even in my job in oncology, just a little bit starting to like help out. But like, if a robot comes to me with a bag of chemotherapy, like I'm going to be a little freaked out beyond like what I can have. And maybe that'll be different in 50 years as a generation grows up around these programs, around these systems. But right now, I need a human connection. If I were to receive that sort of treatment with that sort of diagnosis, I think there are a lot of jobs outside of even healthcare that needs that human touch. I don't believe every business in the world will thrive under AI control. And the idea that humans are weak creatures who cannot even think unless they are assured reasoning is possible, I think it is like a point where, you know, Men in Black, there's that quote where people are smart, humanity is dumb, reckless, and paranoid. I think it's exactly what Agent K says. I think that's very true. As a collective, we are different than an individual. And kind of like how AI takes that. God, I'm sounding so preachy and so far off topic from what this section of reading is trying to say.
And we're in a very preachy segment of Umineko, so I think it's in line with it.
Sure, it's appropriate, I guess, right? I don't know. I really like this line from Dlanor because, like, of all the characters led up to this point, Dlanor was only introduced in episode 5, and I think is the most primed to have character growth. Especially with the conflict between her and Battler that's coming up. And I just it's such a relatable thing. It's like the human nature, human condition. Like, what does it mean? And if you look at it from some sort of force, being, species, nature that is outside of humanity, looking in from it, saying that they're weak, they have to be told reasoning is possible. I don't know. It's the point where, like, what do you value philosophy as a society, right? How important is it to give credence to these strong feelings that a lot of people go through in conflict? How strong is that conflict? It's the power of storytelling and why we as a society and why we as a species connect so deeply to stories, right? It's what drew me into Umineko from the start. Kyle pitching, this is my favorite story of all time. what does that mean for somebody? What does that mean for the three of us or four of us, including Ben, as we go through, Kyle kind of guiding us into it, right? Like Kyle guiding us into it, as I said, having the spark notes for these previous episodes is so different from me going through this on a solo journey.
Mm-hmm.
On a solo journey, I would have finished the story 6 months ago, if not sooner, because I would have just been binging, not trying to solve it, just around for the ride. I enjoy the challenge that the slower pace is presenting us. And I have certainly bitched plenty of times in this podcast about being like, there's no point in trying to solve it because X, Y, Z, or how the evidence is presented, how the story is shown to us. The author can suddenly twist the narrative at any point. It's different than watching a movie where it's the creator had a vision from start to finish.
I will say, we definitely don't have the excuse we didn't have enough time to do the thinking, given our release schedule.
I think all three of us right here are very busy people.
Yes, I know. I'm just pointing out that it's kind of funny. The memory concludes, and Battler thinks on how many clues Virgilia and Dlanor had been trying to give him. It may be too late, but now that there is time, Battler finally begins to think. He suddenly finds himself in the tea room of Purgatorio, a place where he and Beatrice had battled it out so many times before. He begins to think on Knox's Decalogue, and when he struggles to remember the first of the commandments, Delanor's assistant Gertrude appears to assist him. Knox's first. It is forbidden for the culprit to be anyone not mentioned in the early part of the story. With so many new fantastical characters constantly being added, had he subconsciously thought that the true mastermind would simply appear eventually? If he had held on to Knox's first from the start, he never would have suffered as much as he had in the second game. The culprit must be one of the original 18. Cornelia then appears to remind him of Knox's second. It is forbidden for supernatural agencies to be employed as a detective technique. This causes Battler to wonder if this means that the culprit is likewise prohibited from using magic, which causes Gertrude to tell him that it is up to his interpretation. Battler decides to continue along that line of thinking. If the game is meant to be solvable, then everything must be explainable with logic. Magic cannot, must not, exist. Whenever magic appears in the story, it doesn't mean that the mystery is breaking down. Instead, he should question why it was shown and suspect the witnesses and observers. Additionally, since at the end of the first game, it was revealed that all of the events of the story had come from a message bottle recovered from the sea sometime in the future, everything we have been shown is actually from the perspective of its author, and not an unbiased, objective view. Battler wonders if it's even possible to solve a mystery with an unreliable narrator like this. However, he knows that Beatrice made this tale to be solvable, so he simply must trust that reasoning is still possible. He must believe in that love between the two of them. Battler then asks for more of the Decalogue, in whatever order makes sense. Gertrude appears and gives him Knox's 8th. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented, and Cornelia gives Knox's 6th. It is forbidden for accident or unaccountable intuition to be employed as a detective technique. In other words, since it must be solvable, there must be clues and hints for all the mysteries hidden within a tale. The whodunit, the howdunit, and the whydunit. Hints for each must appear, although how difficult it is to pick up those hints will vary from person to person. When Battler had surrendered in the second game, Beatrice must have secretly worried that she had made things too difficult, and so in the third game, she had given him Virgilia and Ronave to help him figure out how to fight back against all of the blatant magic being shown. And at the end of the fourth game, he and Beatrice had finally been able to have a proper battle. Beatrice had entrusted him with her heart in explaining her tale. Battler finally recognizes his folly in refusing to participate in the fifth game, just because he disliked the other participants. That they had been willing to carry on the game themselves was the only reason Battler had been able to continue like this. Gertrude and Cornelia then appear and urge Battler to go back through the tale, now that he's been given eyes that will not miss the truth's faint light. But in order for reasoning to be possible, a trusting relationship with the author of that tale is required. As has been said over and over again in this story, without love, the truth cannot be seen. Everything else fades, and Battler begins to sink into the sea of fragments. He once again passes through all the tales up until now, one after another. And then, when he reaches the peak of Mount Purgatory, he finds Beatrice there waiting for him. And then he knew. He had finally reached the truth.
Oh my god. This is so exciting. Right, well, okay, so first of all, I love that zinger. Now that you've been given eyes that won't miss truth's faint light, it's fantastic. What a great line to say to an incompetent battler.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, finding Beatrice waiting for him at Mount Purgatory. Like, what? He'd finally reached the truth. Love is truth. Truth cannot be seen without love. What? This is so good. Oh my god.
Love is the only element in the universe.
Yes.
Yeah, they've been saying it since all the way back then.
I do really, it's what's kind of funny to me is I do read that line, now that you've been given eyes that won't miss the truth's faint light. That is beautiful and poetic, and but also it reads to me as like, now that I've finally given you all of the context.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's fair.
Because especially like going through this story is like every episode has introduced some new huge thing. Like it's never just like a small bit of the story that we're missing. Like where we started in episode 1 versus where we are now is actually fucking insane. And so it is kind of funny that going back to the quote that Capelli brought up before, where it's like humans are weak creatures who cannot even think unless they have the assurance that reasoning is possible. And the author is still kind of admitting, okay, I've finally given you everything now. Like, you can do it. I promise.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I said previously that there will become a point in the story where the author will practically look at the reader and say, go back and reread the story. You can solve it now. And that is where we're at now. So,
well, thanks, Kyle, for all of your cliff notes, as Capelli said, because not a chance in hell.
Oh, yeah, same.
Yeah, it's a lot. I don't blame y'all at all.
Except that Kyle is self-labeled Golden Witch, therefore he's killed our family. I cannot forgive you for that.
Mm-hmm. I do think this is a great time to read back over the story. Because as they said, like you've been given eyes that can now see truth's faint light. That like exactly, like you have now the context to pick up on all the things you didn't notice before. You have all the tools. You have the Decalogue, which is a fantastic lens to look at a lot of stuff. You have the fact that Kinzo is dead completely changes the context of most of the early parts of the story. Right? We know that magic, if it's shown to us, then whoever is talking about it is probably lying, or there's some other trickery happening with the way the story is being told. So when you go back and you read the story, you really get a lot out of it. And I think if y'all go back to at least the summaries I've written, I think I've kept pretty much every piece you need to get everything out of there in there. I can't promise that I didn't miss something, but I think with that, you could have a decent shot. At the very least, coming up with a theory that would at least satisfy yourself to know that you at least tried, right? And I think that's what the story really wants from you at this point, is to say that you at least thought. You didn't just read through the story as if it was just a romance novel, right? Like you actually went back and you thought about what could this mean? You came to some theories of your own about what's happening. And a lot of that we've been doing as we've gone along, right? So it's not like we have to go back and make a bunch of theories, but I think your experience of episode 6 is massively improved by having at least some kind of theory of what happened by the time you get to episode 6. And by the time you get to the end of episode 6, I think your experience is massively improved by kind of solving it. So we'll definitely talk more as we get closer to that point, but I'll just say that yes, Capelli, I very much approve of you going back and reading over the story. I think that's what the author wants you to do. I think it'll greatly improve your experience of the story forward to at least have some attempt at solving it.
I'm enjoying it. Right, even though like you and I talked like, hey, there's some red text presented in episode 4 about episode 1. I'm just going through episode 1 as normal, like trying to put myself in Battler's shoes, reliving his journey, and then having to go readdress. Like you have my theories of what the mystery solve for episode 1 is right now. And to me, it makes perfect sense. Right? Like this is exactly what happened. This fits everything. I don't think I gave you like the last bit of reading, but like I just like there's a culprit that makes the most sense.
Sure.
I don't have the why done it or anything, but like, the how is there. And just like trying to like relive, okay, what changes in episodes 2, 3, and 4 as I get to that point as the red texts are presented. I know episode 2 will be a pain, but I'm enjoying it. And if I'm playing a game or reading a book, whatever, we're not going to get into it. I'm doing it because I want to enjoy myself, and I definitely am. Right, and I think that's the genius of what this story has has in store, and it's a big reason, if not the reason, why I think it's your favorite story. Is there's a lot of depth to it. Not everything is answered. There's a lot of argument for fans to make one way or the other on this or that, and it's just good stuff. It's just good stuff, and the music fucking slaps.
Yes, it absolutely does. In the Cathedral of Witches, still impaled by Dlanor's blood-red longsword, Battler returns to life. He sees the sleeping form of Beatrice there next to him, but when he reaches for her, her form collapses into ash. Only a single husk of a golden butterfly, torn to shreds, remained. Battler had reached the truth, but he had been unable to do it while Beatrice still remained in this world. It had been him who had been torturing her for all this time, and she had held on for as long as she could, betting on the miracle that he might reach her truth in time. Held in place by Dlanor's sword, Battler can't even reach Beatrice's remains to hold them, but in his palm, he finds a single wing of a golden butterfly. Holding it to his chest and allowing his own blood to seep into it, he can only hope that Beatrice would somehow know that he had found the truth that she had been wanting to tell him.
There's no way you're telling me Becca has nothing to say on this.
I'm just sad. It's so sad. It's like, it's Shakespearean tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Like, I truly don't have anything coherent to say about this because it just makes me so sad. It is so beautifully tragic. But of course, like, there's 3 more episodes of this thing, so like I do have the meta knowledge of being like, okay, I'm ready for this to get fixed somehow. It better get fucking fixed somehow. It better get fixed somehow. Kyle, if I swear to God, if it doesn't get fixed somehow. But yeah. He can't even reach her ashy remains because he's pinned by a sword. What if I just flung myself into the sun? Is all I can say.
It would evaporate the sword.
Practical solutions.
We then return to the scene of the Tea Party segment, with Erika scoffing at Battler's impaled corpse. Suddenly, the red longsword in Battler's chest begins to shine with a golden light from within him, until the entire sword turns bright gold. Bernkastel appears, asking what is going on, and Battler comes back to life, and the golden sword pulls itself from his chest and hovers in front of its new master. Bernkastel asks Lambdadelta if this is one of her tricks, but Lambda is likewise surprised at Battler's sudden revival and new golden aura. Bernkastel attempts to summon the Jester Sisters to shoot down Battler, but they're unable to, as he has ascended to the status of Territory Lord and Endless Sorcerer. Yeah, finally, the thing I said.
What did I say? He was in training.
A lot of your early theories really lived rent-free in my head as I was going through this. Like, goddamn, she got it right. She got it right from the start. She knows what the fuck she's talking about.
Shocking everybody.
There'll be no living with her after this.
Spoiler, we're gonna find out that Hayley's been a witch this whole time, too.
Honestly, I'd buy it.
That'd be the craziest revealist. Like, Hayley read Umineko years ago and has just been asleep for cell.
And just forgot it. And just like, just not registered on Reddit ever before.
Lambdadelta calls for a retrial, despite Bernkastel's objections, as all verdicts are overshadowed by new truths. Erika is seething that Battler has attained the title of witch that she had worked so hard to only receive temporarily, and Bernkastel orders her to destroy this so-called innermost depth of truth that Battler claims to have reached. Battler says in red that he can construct a theory with someone else other than Aunt Natsuhi as the culprit. Even if Erika's truth of Natsuhi being the culprit is impossible to disprove, if his truth can also stand, neither can be declared the one true answer. Erika calls forth Dlanor to put Battler's truth to the test, and Dlanor is delighted to finally be able to face Battler properly in battle. Battler apologizes for keeping her waiting, but she says, "Not at all. Your return was sooner than I anticipated." And then their duel of truths begins.
I love Delanor's little compliment to him right there.
Yeah. Dlanor is so good in this part. Like, she's just like...
She's so good.
So nice, and then she's like, when she's ready to fight, she becomes like this cat demon, like Yoda flipping all over the place. It's really funny.
I need 5,000 like Dlanor plushies that can just live in every room of my house and keep an eye on things.
She's the best. She's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I just want her around. She seems really useful to have around. Anyway,
I don't know if we've seen the sprite yet, but I think it's in the if you go to like the change the audio settings, her picture shows of her wearing little glasses. I don't know if we've actually seen her wear them, but she apparently has a sprite with little glasses. Something to look forward to.
I have not seen this. I need to see this. That's so cute.
Dlanor begins with the blue truth. Lady Erika's reasoning has solved the fifth game. No new facts exist to overturn this logically derived truth. However, Battler responds with his golden longsword that can draw both red and blue truth. It is possible to present a different truth using a different interpretation. It's possible to construct a theory in which this was the revenge of a baby from 19 years ago mentioned by Aunt Natsuhi in her confession. Dlanor responds with the red. Knox is first. It is forbidden for the culprit to be anyone not mentioned in the early parts of the story. The person first introduced in the fifth game cannot be named as the culprit. However, Battler counters with the blue. What if the baby from 19 years ago was among us since the very beginning? For example, what if it was me? Dlanor refutes this with Knox's eighth. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented. and demands evidence of foreshadowing that Battler might be the baby from 19 years ago. Battler gives the following red. The red truth from the 4th game that I am not the son of my mother Asumu. The feeling that Dad was hiding something in both the first game and this game. In particular in this game, it was made clear that there were some special circumstances having to do with my birth. With the basis for the theory sufficiently laid out, Prudo Erika, Witch of Truth, is ready to enter the fray. Manifesting a purple scythe with which to reap contradictions, Erika too begins throwing out combinations of red and blue. It's only possible for the crimes to have taken place during the single hour after midnight. During that 1 hour, you were in the dining hall of the mansion. Therefore, it was impossible for you to commit the crimes. Battler dodges her attack and counters with a combination of his own. It has not been specified that the time of death was during the single hour after midnight. Therefore, it's possible the crimes didn't occur between midnight and 1 a.m. Erika and Dlanor respond with a red that it is impossible for the crimes to have been committed in the cousin's room between 1 a.m. and the time of the crime's discovery. Knox 8. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented. If the crime was actually carried out in the cousin's room, clues must have been shown. Because clues were not given to the detective, Lady Erika, who was on watch for any abnormalities inside of that room until morning, such a crime is impossible. However, Battler simply says in blue that the time of the crime's discovery refers to the point in time that I let out a scream and everyone gathered there. Even if it was impossible to kill them before that point, it was possible to kill them afterwards. Erika is shocked by Battler's claim and reminds him that the deaths of the 4 in the cousin's room have been declared with the red truth. She adds the additional red, and their dead bodies were witnessed by a large number of people, and it's already been declared with the red truth that no examination of any corpse is ever mistaken. However, Ronove suddenly appears to refute Erika. To what point in time did that red truth refer? Have you forgotten, miss? When this court was opened, Lady Lambdadelta made a proclamation. She said this was a 2400 answer session. They were pronounced dead at 2400 on the second day, in other words, at the end of the game. That does not deny the possibility that the murder occurred after the morning of the second day, after the so-called discovery of the crime. Erika is shocked that Ronove would claim that the victims were still alive, despite their necks being sliced open. But Ronove simply says in blue, "Did you see that for yourself, Miss Detective? True, it has been said that no examination of any corpse is ever mistaken, no matter who performs it. But it's never been said that there was a rule against describing something other than a corpse as a corpse." Gop then appears and drops the devastating reminder that Ushiromiya Kinzo is already dead at the starting time of all games. Dropping Erika into a portal, Virgilia follows up with a blue, "Shouldn't you rethink your reasoning? Kinzo doesn't exist. Therefore, the way for the bodies to disappear in your theory breaks down," and impales her with a mighty blue spear of smothered mate. The 7 Sisters of Purgatory then appear and finish off her theory with the red truths. After George's, Jessica's, Maria's, Rose's, Genji's, and Krauss's deaths, their bodies were never moved. Therefore, the bodies could not have vanished after being discovered. Your theory about Kinzo carrying the bodies away breaks down. Erika had played around too much with her reasoning, trying to corner Natsuhi, and now she would have to humiliatingly revise her theory. However, even though Battler is now a witch who can use the red himself, as Dlanor says, Knox is second. It is forbidden for supernatural agencies to be employed as a detective technique. If you intend to show that Kinzo has died with the red truth, I demand that you present evidence of a human truth supporting such a statement. Battler then summons Kinzo's corpse. Presentation of evidence. I present a body that can be identified as Ushiromiya Kinzo. However, Dlanor denies it in blue. Can you prove that this is Ushiromiya Kinzo's body? No matter how much it resembles him, unless you can prove it is him, it is possible to claim that a substitute corpse from somewhere else. Can you show that it is Kinzo's body with a human truth alone? In this one case, I will treat any rebuttal that uses only the red truth as invalid. It's not exactly clear how Dlanor is able to dictate that red truths, even ones already given about there being no substitute corpses, cannot be used for this specific argument. Battler confirms in red, though. In this closed-off Rokkenjiima, there is no objective way to show that this corpse is grandfather's. Dlanor replies in blue, and that itself suggests the possibility that this corpse is a body double. This unidentifiable body cannot serve as proof of Kinzo's death. Unable to use either the red or the blue, Battler's golden longsword draws forth the truth of its original color. Gold truth. I guarantee that this is the corpse of Ushiromiya Kinzo. Dlanor is blasted away, and Bernkastel turns to Lambdadelta to confirm that whatever this is valid. Lambda confirms that the gold truth is valid, and can only be used by the game master themselves. Dlanor explains that the gold truth is a divine truth, woven in a different fashion than the red truth. Its strength is on par with the red truth, sometimes inferior, but sometimes superior. Virgilia appears and says that its brilliant golden shine is proof that Battler has truly understood Beatrice.
The temptation to call this bad writing is certainly there, from my point of view. But, like, the only thing that we have with what the gold truth is are the first 2 words of "I guarantee." And I think that is, like, the crux of it, right? I, the game master, am telling you, the player, fret not, this is the story as I'm presenting it. Which is fine in a story, but to rebut is like, I don't know. the whole, like, Dlanor, I won't accept a red truth in this case. That is bad writing. Like, that is very, like,
Yeah.
we have to do it in the segue into gold, which I saw coming because it's like, oh, a gold sword. And literally 10 minutes before I got to the segment, I was reading the tips section, which talks about the blue key and the red key and what that means for blue text and red text wielded as swords by Dlanor. And anytime I see the word key, I mean, immediately reference back to the epitaph for the key will choose, or, you know, who dies, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The key, I guess, being the game master, like, maybe? Yeah, it's like that. I didn't love the Dlanor saying, like, I won't accept it. Under whose authority? Why is Lambdadelta not saying you don't have that authority, letting it through?
Yeah, I think I can come up with a justification for it, but I don't like the way it's presented here. I think the way it goes is that Battler in this moment is still presenting a human solution, right? He's presenting a detective valid solution, which means that any red truths he gives has to have a non-supernatural basis. You have to at least have a foundation that is non-supernatural, and the red truth is functionally a supernatural truth, right? So if it's just a statement like, this is the rule that magic says, that's not really a functional way to refute that it could be a body double,
right?
And from a detective side, like, it works, but it's messy, and it really does read more like, well, it's time to introduce the golden truth. Like, it doesn't really quite follow that, oh, we need a special truth just for this little segment here. And it's so vague how it, like, your explanation is interesting, Capelli, but, like, how is that different than the red truth, right? Like, if that's the truth, then just use the red truth. So there must be something different about it.
Because you have to accept some sort of plausible deniability to let a fantastical story be permissible.
Is the red truth the truth from the perspective of the person saying it, or the gold truth is just the truth?
So, well, can I say what I think it is, and then I would like to hear if you have a more detailed explanation? The red truth to me seems to be things that can be proven by observed facts by people on the island within the game. Like, it's an observable fact or a provable fact based on evidence that's presented. And the gold truth is a fact without tangible evidence, but we can take it as truth because it's essentially divine mandate from the game master. And we take it as a given that the game master knows everything about the state of the game. So if they're telling you something directly, it's like the word of God.
I like that theory.
It's hard to say, because, like, some of the red truths that we have, like, a lot of the stuff, right, that obviously, like, where Erika and Bernkastel are giving red truths, those are based off of the detective's authority, things that Erika can prove, that kind of stuff. But the truth that Lambdadelta gives is definitely less so.
Which one is that specifically?
I mean, there's just all, like, almost every truth. All the stuff that, like, when Lambdadelta just says, and let me just have to find something.
I do want to hear an example to, like, kind of jog my memory of the way she does it, but I do remember us kind of talking about Lambda taking certain liberties in the way she fashions her red truths because they seem somewhat subjective.
Yeah. And it's not specific to Lambda, but, like, things like, no one would mistake Ushiromiya Kinzo by sight, right? That's, like, less is that really a fact, or is that, like, a law being laid down for the purpose of this game?
Okay, true. And the red truth did start as, like, it really does just feel like the gold truth is an elevated form of red truth in that way, because, like, we didn't know the gold truth existed until now, and Lambda has never technically been the master of this world except kind of by proxy, because when Beato's catatonic, she does become the game master for that round.
Right.
And I would take it as, like, all of the red truth that we've gotten from Beato in episodes 1 through 3 and all of the red truth that we got from Lambda in episode 4 are essentially gold truths. They just were not presented to us in that way because
Are they, though?
We didn't need to know about it until now.
Okay.
But if they were the game masters as Battler is now, it stands to reason that essentially that power was theirs.
The way you and I took it in two different directions, because when I got to this part and it was explained that the gold could only be used by the game master, I was of two minds. And one, what if Beato is not the true game master, which has a whole lot of other implications, which I don't really think is the case. But 2, why did she never use it? Why did she stick with the red, where the gold would be better or weaker depending on the given situation?
Yeah, we only have this one example, so it's really hard to extrapolate too much from it. But yeah.
We only have this one example, but we have a pretty credible source dictating how it's to be used strategically.
Simply because she didn't need to. Like, she didn't need to at that point. Battler didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah, and
why waste a hidden weapon if you don't have to unsheath it, you know? The best weapon you have is the one you don't need to use, right?
But yeah, but she never used it, right? Like it where we are at in this story, she has a motive. Getting into even the end of episode 4 and here in episode 5, she's practically catatonic. If she wanted to use it as a weapon, she would, but her goal clearly is not to attack Battler. And it made me think, like, okay, she made episode 3 easier on him because she saw how much he struggled with episode 2. And then I think back to Kyle saying that the author made episode 3 easier for the reader. I'm like, how much is this statement influenced by real events, or how much are real events influenced by the theme of the story?
One thing I want to say about the Gold Truth is that Virgilia says that it's Brilliant Shine is proof that Battler has truly understood Beatrice. So there's something to be said there that, like, perhaps it's possible you could claim that, like, the Gold Truth is something that's more at the core of the story, like the heart of the story, and it's, like, not something that Beatrice wanted to reveal to Battler. I don't know. I can't talk too much about stuff because we're getting into things that are talked more in, like, episode 6.
Spoilers.
We can relitigate this when we have more context for it.
Yeah, we definitely are going to.
That was just my initial impression based on the information we currently have.
That could be the subtitle to the majority of the story. We can relitigate this once we have more context.
Yep.
Oh man, I guarantee that this is the corpse of Ushiromiya Kinzo. See, like, that's really specific.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
I guarantee it. Like, how do you guarantee it?
What I would think is he has solved the core of episodes 1 through 5, which means he understands Beato's motivations, her drive, and her methods, and somewhere along those lines he's able to say with complete confidence, this is my grandfather's body. That has been sitting here for 2 years?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure where he found that body.
Right? Because, like, I'm starting to wonder if the body was burnt to a crisp, almost in the sense of, like, Egyptian mummification, and then burned again to cause that ungodly smell and the idea that his body was, you know. But then, as I'm going back through trying to solve episode 1, the end credits certainly says that Kinzo was the whatevereth sacrifice. Which means that even that is unreliable.
Sure.
And in that case, like, the only thing I would really believe in an end credits roll would be the gold text. And if the gold text said that Kinzo was the whatevereth sacrifice, I wouldn't even know what to believe at that point.
So I think it's entirely plausible that it was actually Kinzo's corpse, because, like, they've probably got, like, a walk-in freezer. I mean, they have a kitchen that none of the family would go in.
Yeah, possible.
I can't imagine that it's never been brought up at this point.
Well, or just even a chest freezer. I mean, it's the 80s. It's not like the 1700s, so...
Logic says you are correct, right? Logic says you are correct. But you can't... Knox's whatevereth.
Yeah.
You can't solve with clues that have not yet been presented.
But has it? Have we just not paid attention to the kitchen because it didn't seem relevant?
Pretty sure it has never mentioned a walk-in freezer of any kind that could hide a body.
But have we seen one in the kitchen scenes and not noticed?
I haven't. That's why Goda keeps being killed off early, so we can't mention the freezer in relevant segments.
Exactly, yeah.
See, you're getting it.
He knows too much.
What we don't know is that Goda is a terrible chef, and all of his meals are ordered and frozen ready to heat up and use.
Of course. Lambdadelta says the Battler needs to say no more. She understands his theory and has validated it. Battler continues in red. Grandfather's absence has therefore been proven, and the dishonorable relationship between Aunt Natsuhi and Grandfather has been removed from consideration. Aunt Natsuhi is pure and faithful. I won't permit this vulgar tale you're all so fond of. Furthermore, because doubts have been raised about the time of death for all who have died so far, The alibis for everyone besides Aunt Natsuhi are null and void. The argument that the crimes couldn't have been committed by anyone except Aunt Natsuhi no longer stands. However, Dlanor refuses to give up the fight. She makes one final stand with the red. However, in the cousin's room, you witness dead bodies which were impossible to misidentify. Are you trying to say that it was a falsehood? Knox is 7th. It is forbidden for the detective to be the culprit. However, Battler says that Erika is the detective of this game, not me. And by Knox's 9th, observers are permitted to put forward their own conclusions and interpretations. Dlanor counters with Knox's 8th. It is forbidden for the case to be resolved with clues that are not presented. Until now, you have been the detective. Was it ever shown that you were not the detective this time and that you were an observer with a subjective viewpoint? Unless it was, you do not have the right to falsify your point of view. Battler then reminds us that, in this game, when I figured out the devices in the epitaph's riddle, I witnessed Grandfather. As has already been shown in red, Grandfather does not exist. It was impossible for me to witness him. Therefore, it has already been shown that my viewpoint was not objective. Dlanor attempts to counter with the blue that it is possible that it was just a sheet or something fluttering in the wind in the rain that you mistook for Kinzo. It cannot be used as foreshadowing to form a basis for Knox's 9th. Mistaking things for something else is a right permitted to all observers. However, Battler reminds us that there's the red truth that Beato showed us during the 4th game. No person would mistake Ushiromiya Kinzo by sight. In other words, on this island, anything which might lead someone to visually mistake something for Grandfather, including someone else pretending to be Grandfather, cannot ever work. Because of the right granted by Knox's 9th, everyone is allowed to mistake a sheet in the wind for something else and talk mistakenly about what they saw. However, mistaking it for Grandfather in particular is not permitted in this game due to the red truth. In short, Battler would have to have been lying about seeing Kinzo and showing us that in the tale, we must not have been seeing an objective viewpoint. Battler finishes the fight with the blue statement. Therefore, my perspective in this particular game is based on the 9th commandment, not the 7th. The fact that I claim to have seen Grandfather is proof. Unable to respond further, Dlanor resigns. Battler gives Dlanor's father his respect. The Decalogue was neither arrogant nor judgmental. When Erika tries to berate Dlanor for giving up, Battler tells Erika that it's her that doesn't understand a thing about mysteries, seeing them as nothing more than a weapon with which to sneer at her opponents intellectually. Battler declares in blue, I present a truth that conflicts with yours. And Natsuhi was threatened by a phone call over the internal line made from the man 19 years ago, me. His goal was to make Aunt Natsuhi look like a murderer. From the beginning, this has been a drama of revenge intent on framing Aunt Natsuhi. Erika responds, that's wrong. It's a drama of revenge against the Ushiromiya family planned by Natsuhi. Your theory outright opposes mine. However, since Erika's theory contradicts the fact that Kinzo is dead, it is currently invalid. Bernkastel berates Erika until she manages to shabbily patch together a revision that technically works with all their current red truths, if only barely. Both Dlanor and Battler defend Erika and her truth from Bernkastel's wrath. After all, in this world, there can be any number of valid truths. But as Battler says, since neither truth can be denied, there is no single definitive answer, and the witch's illusion continues to exist. However, the only one that he will allow to expose Beatrice's illusion is he himself. Lambdadelta officially announces the outcome of this game is a draw, and hands over the position of Game Master to Battler, the Golden Sorcerer. Battler accepts the position and says that he and Erika will settle things for good, this time in the 6th and final game. And with that, we've reached the end of Episode 5, End of the Golden Witch.
What? Don't we have it in red that Battler is not the culprit?
Yes.
For previous games.
Whether that applies to this game or not is... I don't know. You can make a case.
So what are we trying to solve? Which game are we trying to solve?
That is the big question. Is there a single individual culprit throughout? You could say Battler's not the culprit. Is this really Battler? Right? I think I can go back to like the whole, the furniture isn't a person in the eyes of Beato. So how does, I feel like that argument doesn't really work, but it does if you kind of twist it into who is Battler. I think if we were to look at all of our red text so far, we'd have to really look at Episode 4. Is there proof that shows the Battler that we have been following is the true Battler in those statements? If not, where is the true original Battler? Is he on the island as the 18th or 19th or 17th, whatever? A lot of things are still intentionally ambiguous.
The culprit has to appear in the early part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
So does that mean in an individual episode, or does it mean as a whole?
I personally am taking it as the culprit is in episode 1.
Right.
Whether it is one person throughout, or if they did the old true clue ending where it's a different person every episode.
Now, is that the person who killed Cannon in episode 1 we never see? Could it be them? Because they are technically present, but they're not named directly, right? It could be it was so-and-so all along, which there's a lot of ambiguity as I've gone back through it. Like, my current theory for episode 1 is it's some combination of the servants / Nanjo.
Kumasawa.
Yeah, she's
Kumasawa
right.
Dunnit.
Like
Kumasawa
like
Dunnit.
Hayley is big in the Kumasawa Dunnit. I don't know if Ben was for Nanjo or it can't be Nanjo as a joke. I can't remember like where he truly lies on that.
Ben's in love with Nanjo. It can't be the love of his life.
I, for a long time, was fully in it has to be Genji.
Yeah, the servants do be suspicious.
And I think the strongest theory is that we are all correct in unition. Going back through episode 1, I'll leave it for the bottom message episode that we're going to do next. But I do believe my top theory is it is a combination of them.
All right.
My first thought in terms of like when the author's having his little wall breaking moment and he's staring at us straight out of the game to say, hey, solve it. You know you want to solve it. Go ahead and solve it. Was we still don't have any kind of explanation or even really like, in my opinion, good theory about what the fuck happened to Goda and Kumasawa in episode 4, I think, whenever they end up hung in the garden shed.
Are we given a red text where that's a homicide versus a suicide?
Oh god, we have to go check our logs. We have documents that list them. So
we do get some kind of weird red text regarding it.
We'll dig back through it before the message bottle. Like that's my challenge to all of us is to go back through and try to have a solve.
But it was one of the things that immediately pinged in my mind is like, yeah, that was something that there were so many question marks around that.
There's a lot of loose ends throughout all 4 of the episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, some of the murders, they end up getting like a lot of attention and a lot of truths and a lot of sticky, particulars about them. And some of them are just like still giant question marks. So I'm interested to go back and start comparing notes.
And some of them I feel are given explanations that no longer hold up to scrutiny. I think the idea of if somebody's perspective is shown to have witnessed magic, and I want to add in the qualifier that they then relay that message to somebody else, right? Like episode 3, where Kyrie and Rudolph fight a couple of the sisters, they then die and don't share that story with anybody. I wouldn't give their testimony like that is very much this is being shown to Battler from Beato. But if they came back to the rest of the group and was like, oh, they told Hideyoshi and Hideyoshi escaped to tell them, at what point in that chain of telephone is the lie, right? But in episode 4, it's, the whole family saw Kinzo. You could not dispute that is Kinzo. Nobody could see him as otherwise. Then in that case, it's either, like my crazy theory I suggested to Kyle was like, the whole family's in on it, except for Ben. Maybe not Maria, maybe not Jessica, maybe not George, but the rest of them are, right? Or you have to look at, and this is what I'm going to be thinking about when I go back through episode 4, is who tells this to Battler? And the only person I remember offhand is Kyrie. And at that point, I'm starting to build a pattern of people outside the family looking in, trying to have some sort of nefarious motives, right? Why did Kyrie really marry into this family? Why did Natsuhi's family marry her into it? I don't think Natsuhi directly is an antagonist in this story, but the forces behind her might be. Why did, if I'm right about Genji and Nanjo and Kumasawa and maybe even Shannon and Cannon, what are their motivations? How does the Fumikawa house connect to all of this? Like, this is the Charlie, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, string wall meme. Like, that's where this is starting to tie in. This is what I'm starting to piece together. And I think before we get to the bottle episode, an answer I hope to have a cohesive thought to explain it. I don't know if I'll be right, but I hope to be able to explain, like, this is my rationale, this is my chain of thought that led me to wielding the golden text for myself, right? That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's fun. Like, the 4 hours I put into episode 1 between watching after these kids and everything, like, I had a blast with that, and I want to dig back into it more.
I'm glad.
So I don't know if I dreamt this or not, but I feel like in the last day or two I read something about...
Been there.
About Rudolph wanted to tell Battler about something that happened around his birth. Was that revealed to us?
In episodes 1 and
in this one, yeah.
1 and 5, yeah. He talks about something, right? Which In episode 5, we have the threat of this mysterious person and the baby or whatever. In episode 1, we have absolutely no context for what he could be talking about. So then that leads into how tied in to each episode are we? Like, the backstory for the characters leading into episode 5, how much do we care about their backstory in episode 1? Because I can't believe it's a complete one-to-one connection, but I have to believe it's somewhat close.
My main thing here is, like, this part also just made me sad for Erika.
Oh, yeah.
This is the part where it's not your fault you're so annoying. The only person...
Are you sure about that?
Yeah. The only person she has in her life treats her like a dog. And this is the only way she's found to get validation in any kind of way.
I don't mean to say this in a derogatory fashion, but what if she is just that, right? Like, Bernkastel keeps saying, you are my copy, / you are my clone, / I created you, / we haven't talked about homunculi since episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
True.
But that's the thing. She's not exactly Bern.
No.
But she has been treated in this way where she's been abused as much as anybody else in this story.
Maybe. Could be possible. God, we're gonna get Erika's backstory in episode 6, aren't we?
We've categorically observed it in this episode. We've seen the way Bern treats her.
All right, I'm on board. I'm ready for an Erika redemption story.
I am just interested to see what ends up happening with Erika, like what role she's going to have going forward. I mean, obviously, she's now Battler's antagonist, and whereas Beato, she faded and turned to ash. So we're going to have to figure out how she's going to be brought back into this story.
I have 2 theories. One, she fills in the role that Angie had, or she gets obliterated for being unwavering to the idea of new evidence and new theories to be presented to her.
I guess we'll see.
We will see.
Yeah, we will see.
Kyle could tell us, but he won't, the jerk.
It's true. I will say that episode 6 is kind of like episode 5 and 6 are kind of like a pair in terms of like the structure of them. Like, it's a continuation of the story, and whereas like 7 and 8 are like kind of distinct from them. In terms of like the answer arc, 5 and 6 are, I would say, like the hints arc, where like in 5 and 6 you're going to get aggressive hints.
Aggressive hints. I used to play bass for aggressive hints.
Yeah. Whereas episode 7 is more where you're expected to kind of know the answer at this point, and it's there to check your work.
Interesting.
To like, it's going to give you more definitive answers to your question. And that's why I said...
Are we just along for the ride in episode 8?
Yeah, kind of. It's kind of like a story wrap-up-y kind of episode. There's still lots of stuff that happens in episode 8, but it's more of like the emotional payoff for everything. 7's like... So 5, you get a heavy hinting. You're meant to try and come up with some theories. 6, very significant hints where you're kind of meant to solve the answer at that point. 7, here is stuff to check your answer against to make sure you've got it correct. And then 8's like wrap up and emotional like through line.
But no actual solve.
Don't answer that. Don't answer that. Don't answer that. I don't want to know the answer to that.
We'll talk about it later.
Episode 8 message bottles, guys. Prepare for my wrath.
Are we going to have an episode 8 message bottle and then an entire, like, separate episode about the entire goddamn thing? We probably will. There'll be so much to talk about. Yeah.
We'll have to see how we feel. All right, well, next week we'll be trying to have our message bottle for episode 5. So if you have any comments or questions or things you want us to talk about as we kind of sum up everything that happened in episode 5 and give our thoughts and everything, make sure you get those into us as soon as you can, either on the YouTube comments or in the Off-Meta Discord, where we have a channel for every podcast episode, so you can have discussions in there that are spoiler gated to specifically content up to that point. So even if you're coming back to this later on in the future, you can always jump to Discord and still have a conversation there relative to the content that you've seen up to this point. So, and of course, we also have our spoiler chat that is for full spoiler discussions that is completely sealed off from anyone else on this podcast to go and look at. So, at least for now, someday in the future, you'll be able to read those comments.
Soon. It marches ever closer.
Yeah, we are now 5/8 of the way through Umineko, plus whatever else we decide to cover in addition to the end of the visual novel.
Oh, shit. Thank you, Kyle.
Do y'all feel like you're getting answers now that we're 1/4 the way into the answers arc?
No.
It's so frustrating because there's just so much content that like it's hard to keep track of. But like, I very much feel like I have the tools to solve it. It's just a matter of putting in the legwork and trying to make it fit together. Like, going through episode 1, I'm trying to be like, how do I use Knox's Decalogue here? How do I use the wolves and the sheep? I was actually using the wolves and sheep going through episode 1.
Yeah, wolves and sheep is also a fantastic tool.
You and I broke down, we have Decalogue, the wolves and sheep puzzle, magic being an unreliable narrator, like that is kind of a huge hint of whose perspective can be trusted, and Kinzo being dead, who's lying about it, and why, right? Like, even up at end of episode 5, where Natsuhi is being violently blamed, like, you're serving the household. I don't understand how you, Kumasawa, you, Nanjo, you, Shannon, you, Cannon, know Kinzo is not alive. You have the answer to basically say, look, because of this, we have to question everything about this theory that says it's absolutely Natsuhi. Why are they not doing it?
Mm-hmm.
Unless they are so loyal to be like, Natsuhi commanded us to, we will stick to that. But, like, I don't know if she necessarily did, and I feel like we would have gotten a cutaway of Shannon and Cannon having a conversation being like, I don't feel good about this. Shannon, we are not but furniture. We must stick to what our masters tell us to do, blah, 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 blah. We didn't get that.
And your canon impression is spot on.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel like a 16-year-old emotionally stunted boy when I say it.
I think your question, Kyle, was, do we feel like we have the tools, right? Was it?
Yeah. Well, like, I was wondering, like, how you feel about the answers you've received so far. Do you feel like you're
I see.
being given answers?
I don't, because I still don't know. Because based on the ending of that, like, what am I supposed to solve? Am I solving everything? Am I supposed to solve each story, each episode in its own capsule? Like, what's the deal? Because am I supposed to solve all 5, like all of them as one, and then each one individually? So yeah, I don't know.
I would say that you can solve all of it, and you can solve individual ones. Something I was talking to Capelli about is that if you're going to try and actually solve Umineko at this point, or like take a serious shot at it, something I said to Capelli, it's like, there's kind of 2 perspectives you need to keep in mind. You need to keep in mind the Decalogue and like the mechanical solving of the mystery. That is a great way to get distinct insights into what the story is doing. But also, you can't forget the heart. As kind of one thing we talked about is that, like, Erika goes on this monologue near the end of the story. It was like, you can't trust anything that's not in red. The white text is full of nothing but lies. And that she is wrong, right? That's one of the things that the story is trying to tell you. Don't ignore the white text. Is it full of lies? Absolutely. But even those lies are full of something that the author is trying to get across to the reader.
Right. The way I took that was like, Shannon will never kill George. But if she did, what would lead her to do so? Like, why would she feel so like I don't think that's the case in any story, but like, that's kind of the heart that I'm like trying to look at, right? What would lead somebody to kill their loved one?
Right.
Right. Episode 3 very much presents us as Eva is the killer. What would lead her to kill Hideyoshi? Episode 5 very much presents us as Natsuhi is the killer, but it makes you see things from her perspective where she isn't. So from Erika's point of view, like, what would lead her to kill her husband and her son? That's brutal. And that's like, when I'm looking at the heart, like, okay, if for someone to, like, if their why done it doesn't fit, either it doesn't work, or what would I have to imagine to make it work?
Yeah. By Knox's 8, there have to be clues for everything, including the why done it. So I will say that the why done it is a really hard one. It is not easy to figure out. It's hard for me to say because, like, when I go back and read it, I'm like, oh my God, it's so obvious, like, because I know the answers, obviously. So as they say, Beatrice gives clues, but it's hard to say how easy those clues are related to anyone else. So I can say at least that it's probably not easy to figure this out, even with the perspective we have now. But I can definitively say that the information is there.
So, Becca, how do you feel about what you've got so far?
I mean, I've got all the answers I need, baby. Love is the one true element of the universe. I'm just coasted. In all seriousness, though, I'm very satisfied with what we've gotten so far because, no, we haven't gotten any kind of, like, super direct answers except for, like, some things being confirmed that could have been, guessed. I guess all of this is stuff being confirmed that can be guessed at a certain point because he's given us all the clues, apparently. Right. But, like the reveal of Lambda and Burn being in cahoots, like, yeah, I think we got that a little while ago. And it's just kind of like the final confirmation. But I am really satisfied with the way that he's presenting it as, like, I know that maybe this has been a little obfuscated in the way that this narrative has unfolded. And so let me lay out for you the mechanics and let me give you all the tools, literally. I like that he's saying, give it one last shot on your own.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can see what happens after that. But I think that is really fun in terms of telling a story, to be like, because it also, like, in a way, going back to part of our conversation earlier in terms of like when you're experiencing something that's brand new and being released on a schedule and you can't consume all of it at once.
Mm-hmm.
He low-key kind of future-proofed his work in this way, where he was like, I really want you to think about this before you continue. And ultimately, he's not going to be able to stop you if you just want to keep reading and binging this story, but he can at least...
I mean, that's what I did personally. I didn't stop to think about what the story was doing. I was just loving the story that was being presented, and I just flew into the next part, wanting to see how the narrative would unveil itself. So I can't pretend that I am, above that kind of thing.
Wow.
And it's not like it hurt my experience of the game. I can just say that, like, looking back on it, I do think the experience is enhanced by if you take some time to think about it, at least to some degree. And I think that's what we're doing here. I don't think this is going to be like I don't expect us to pick up a big diagram and have a cork board and do our Always Sunny moment. But yeah, so I think reading back through the notes and at least giving some thought to what you think is happening here with a fresh perspective, I think would be sufficient to really get the most out of what we're doing here.
Wow, Kyle, you're really pushing us to do stuff even you weren't willing to do. Wow.
I know. I'm a hypocrite.
Hypocrisy.
So lazy.
So what was that about the light in, like, your eyes or something?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Now that your eyes have been given the ability to see the faint light of the truth. Okay, you kind of answered my question, because I was going to ask you, like, at what point did you solve the story, but it sounds like you just kind of read through to the answer.
Did not. So I'll straight up tell you, I rolled in to episode 7, not having given much thought at all to what the actual answer was, and that sucked. Don't do that.
Okay.
That's why I'm recommending we give it some thought, because if you go into episode 7 and you have not thought sufficiently to at least kind of know the culprit at that point, or like some of the answers, it's going to be, one, confusing, and then but not so confusing, and then once you see what they're saying, it's like, oh, it really takes the wind out of the sails. You really want to take the time at the end of episode 6 to figure out, because like they laid on pretty thick in episode 6, I feel like, but then again, that's with hindsight. So we'll see.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. It'll be now, see, this is where the gamifying part comes in, is now I feel motivated to try competitively to try and solve this now.
Yeah, I would say solving Umineko by the end of episode 1, theoretically possible, I guess, but that's insane. Solving Umineko by the end of episode 4, very difficult. Theoretically possible, very, very difficult. Episode 5, very hard, but doable. People do that. Episode 6 is kind of what the story expects you to do. They expect you to solve it at the end of episode 6, I would say. So.
Got it. I just heard you tell me I don't need to pay attention for at least another 7 podcast episodes.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'm just joking.
I know.
But the epitaph, right?
Yeah, so the epitaph is not getting any new information up, and I think I told Hayley this because Hayley is obsessed with the epitaph. No more information is happening until they give you the answer in episode 7. So if you want to try and solve the epitaph, this is what you got.
Okay. I feel like I'm so close.
So thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this discussion of the ending of episode 5, which is one of my favorite parts of Umineko. Just so much cool stuff happened in this. Battler finding the answer, and then the turnaround that he might be the baby from 19 years ago, and just, it's all so good and so tragic. And I'm so excited for y'all to join us as we journey into episode 6. But next time, though, we're doing a message bottle, so please get that questions in, and we would love to hear your thoughts on this episode and things you want us to talk about. But thank you for joining us, and remember to think off meta.